Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be showing from round 6 of the FIDE Chess Olympiad. It is Team Hungary versus Team India, Sanan Sjugirov versus Arjun Erigaisi, playing on board 3, and so far both teams are on a perfect score, 10 out of 10, and only 4 teams have 10 points, India, China, Vietnam, and Hungary. And here we have the match India versus Hungary, and the other match is also being played, China versus Vietnam, even still being played, I think, while I'm recording this, and a lot is happening in that one. Now, tomorrow is a rest day, so make sure you suggest as many games as possible, and I'm going to try to cover the one I really like, and then I'm going to mention all the others that you guys suggested at the end of the video, if, you know, they are worthy. So let's check it out, and this game really shows us how chess, or rather knowledge of chess, is very, very layery. My point being that at some point, you know, you look at a position and you might be thinking, well, I really understand chess. And then you look at a different position and then you might be thinking, I know nothing about chess. And then, you know, it goes on. Then you learn a bit more. Then you finally think you understand. And then someone completely crushes you and you realize you understand nothing. I'm pretty sure it happens to everyone at any level. Even a Magnus Carlsen might look at a position and think, wow, I know nothing about chess. This is what I got from this game. So let's check it out. Sanan Sjugirov with white opens with pawn to e4. And it's going to be a very theoretical opening, as the line has been played many times, and even the entire game has been played almost to end game last year once. Bishop to b5, we have Ruy Lopez. a6 Morphy's defense, bishop a4, knight to f6. We have castles and pawn to d6. We have rook to e1 and bishop to d7. Interesting also to mention, Sanan Sjugirov is undefeated this Olympiad, and Arjun Erigaisi is also undefeated, but he's on 5 out of 5, so he won all of the games he played. Okay, so bishop d7, we have c3, making room for the bishop on c2, pawn to g6, and pawn to d4. Now Sanan strikes in the center, bishop to g7 and pawn to h3. We have castles and knight b to d2. We have e captures on d4, c captures and knight to b4. Now offering a trade of light square bishops, and Sanan obliges, captures, and queen to b3. Puts pressure on the knight, a5 defends the knight, a3 attacks the knight, and knight back to c6. And now pawn to d5. Okay, chasing away the knight and preparing to capture on b7. So why is Arjun blundering a pawn here? Well, obviously he's not. If you look at his clock time, he has more time than he started with, so obviously he knows what he's doing. And Sanan already burned an hour off of his clock. So Arjun goes knight to b8. Queen captures on b7, Sanan goes after the pawn, and now knight to a6, preparing knight to c5 to kick away the queen from b7 and also gain a lot of activity, plus go after that e4 pawn. Also the b2 pawn will become weak, so it's definitely a fair trade-off. We have queen back to b3, knight to c5 attacking the white queen, and queen to c4. And here Arjun just played queen to a4. You can see he still has an hour and 30 minutes on the clock, which means that he knows what he's doing here very well. Pawn to e5, again, it has been played before, and the e4 pawn will become a target, so you might as well advance it. Queen captures on c4, knight captures, and d captures on e5. We have knight f captures on e5, and now Arjun wins back his pawn. Knight captures on d5, and we have rook to d1. Puts pressure on the knight here, knight to b6, and bishop to e3. Putting pressure on the knight on c5, and like I said, there is a game that reached this position. It was played between Mohan Kushgra and Valentin Dragnev, where knight captures on c4 was played. Interestingly, I'm also going to show you a bit of a game in this video that Dragnev played against the young Krzysztof Duda. It's, I mean, it's out of this world. But only after I show you this game. So knight c captures on knight c to a4, and it is now as of move 23 that we have a completely new game, and we very quickly trade down into an endgame. Bishop d4, rook a to d8, and now a bishop captures on b6. We have c captures on b6, knight to d7 attacking the rook and the b6 pawn, but also you will lose the b2 pawn. So okay, rook f to e8, knight d captures on b6, we have knight captures on b6 and knight captures on b6. Bishop captures on b2, attacking the rook, rook captures on d8, rook captures, and rook to a2 attacking the bishop. We have bishop to, first rook to d1 check, king to h2, and now bishop to d4, attacking the knight, putting pressure on the f2 pawn. But okay, the rook on a2 defends the pawn on f2. So now just knight to c4, attacking the a5 pawn, and Arjun plays pawn to a4. And this is key, as you want to keep that pawn on a dark square. Arjun has a dark square bishop, and this pawn needs to be a weakness. But okay, your opponent has a knight, so doesn't matter if the pawn is on a dark square or a light square in regards to the knight. But in regards to your own bishop, it definitely helps that this pawn is on a dark square. And if you look at the clock time, 2 minutes versus 54 minutes. Can Sanan hold this against Arjun? Let's see. Pawn to g3. Bishop to c5. We have rook to c2, okay. Rook to d4, just improving the position of the pieces. King to g2 and king to f8. Now both players improving the positions of their kings. Rook to c3 and king to e7. We have knight to e5. Rook to d5, attacking the knight. Knight back to d3. We have bishop to b6, declining the trade, and king to f3. We have rook to b5, now going for rook to b3, and king to a2. We have rook to b3, and now knight to b4. Okay, trading here might look like a good idea because your king is very close to this b3 pawn. The problem is after king d2, there's bishop d4. And now, look at this. This is covered, this is covered, this is covered, this is covered. There's just no way for the white king to go after that pawn and after something. And also, if you move the knight, your f2 pawn will hang. So something like f4, king to e6. You can play king to c1, but now just king to d5. And, of course, it's completely winning for Arjun. So after rook b3, knight to b4 is played. This is definitely the way to go. King to d7. We have rook to d3 with check. Here, there's actually brilliance in king to d7. Rook to c6 was the idea that Valentin had if the king moves. But after king to d7, there's actually no way to get close to that pawn or bishop. Because if you play rook to c6 now, then rook captures on b4. Okay. Nothing really for you to do. The bishop is now defended, and if you capture the rook, then you're just down a full bishop. So after king to d7, rook to d3 check was played, and now the question is, what do you do here? Feel free to pause the video, soak in the position a little bit and decide what would you play here if you were playing a 26-49 opponent at the 45th Chess Olympiad. Have at it while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this brilliancy. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook captures on d3. That is the move. And now you have to really be a great endgame player to realize, okay, not a great one, to realize that king cannot capture because you lose the f2 pawn, but that after the knight captures, your king gets an entrance into the position. The c6 square is no longer covered, and now Arjun plays it, and he has a much more active king. And as the game is played on both sides of the board, bishops tend to be a little bit better than knights, and sometimes they are a lot better than knights. So here, king to d2, bishop to d4, nicely controlling the squares in front of the white king. Pawn to f3, so you can move the knight. The knight no longer has to defend the pawn on f2. King to d5. We have king to c2, and now bishop to g7. Just a waiting move to see what white will do. Pawn to h4 and bishop to f6. We have king back to d2. King to c4. Arjun has an easy entrance into the position, but okay, there's still a problem on how to actually go after that a3 pawn. We have king to c2, stopping king to b3. Now pawn to h5, and here we have pawn to g4. It's not a pawn sacrifice because if the bishop moves, then you will have this knight to e5 check, and you will win the f7 pawn. But just to give you an example, let's say you go knight b2 check. Arjun instantly trades, captures, even though we said that with play on both sides of the board, bishops are a little bit better than knights. After king to d3, your position is hopeless. You're just going to gobble up all of the pawns and win the game easily. Another thing you might try is just do nothing. That's always very popular. Just, play knight e1, knight e3. How does Arjun win this? Well, king d4, and now after, let's say, knight g2, stopping king to e3, you play bishop e5. You go after the pawn, and after pawn to f4, you go bishop d6. And now the pawn is attacked, and once the king defends, now you have a free entrance to the king side, and again, you will gobble up everything, and win the game easily because you are an amazing player, let's face it. So g4 looks like a pawn sacrifice, but it's not. Captures, captures. We have bishop captures on h4 and knight to e5 with check. King to d5 and knight captures on f7. But now there is a problem, and it's a really big one. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Arjun while I give you a couple of seconds. Yes, you won the knight, you won the pawn, you equalized the material, but at what price? At the price of a knight. That's the price. And bishop to f6 makes sure that the knight stays trapped. There's no square for this knight. Now d8 is covered, h8 is covered, g5 is covered. You can only go to h6, and that will not help you. King to d3 was played. We have king to e6 attacking the bishop. If you try the in-between pawn to g5, doesn't really do anything because you simply trade and now you're up a pawn. Of course, being up a pawn in a king and pawn endgame is completely winning. So after king to e6, knight to h6 was played, but the knight is still trapped. Just bishop to g5. And now if you go here, then king f7 traps the knight. And if you go knight to f5, which was played in the game, it doesn't really do all that much. But here, instead of resigning, Sanan set a very, very neat trap. Arjun, of course, captured the knight. G captures on f5 with check. But now, of course, you don't capture the pawn. That is an uncle move. You do not touch that pawn. You have to play king to d5. If you capture the pawn, then after a king to c4, bishop e7. Okay, you cannot go here, but you can go here, and you will lose that pawn. Remember, the pawn is on a light square. So after g captures on f5, Arjun just played king to d5, and he was in this position on move 57 that Sanan Sjugirov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He will later make sure to win the pawn. He will win the a3 pawn, and then you don't have to worry because the bishop is of the right color. If the bishop was a light square bishop and the pawn was queening on a dark square, then of course it would be a draw. But a few moves down the road, you will put a bishop on this diagonal, win this pawn, and just advance this pawn to victory. And of course everyone knows that, Sanan knows that, so of course he resigned the game. And this makes it a 6 out of 6 for Arjun. He's currently up 13 rating points. He's almost very, very close to 2800. I will check just how close he is to 2800. Just give me a second. Let me just update this. Yeah, Arjun is world number 4 at 2791.3. So less than 9 points, 8.7 points away from 2800 for the first time for Arjun Erigaisi. It's possible for him to break it during this Olympiad. If he continues this, I mean, the man is literally farming at the Olympiad. I mean, absolutely incredible. Gukesh did it already. He did it in 2022 with that 8 out of 8. So 2 more to reach Gukesh's level, and then well, 1 more to make it a 9 out of 9. Will it be a 9 out of 9? I have no idea, but the way Arjun is playing, and I've seen an interview with Arjun. He said that they put him on board 3, even though he is the highest rated of the lot, because he has more experience beating lower rated players. Now, okay, I guess you can't really consider Sanan Sjugirov at 2649 a lower rated player, but for Arjun, pretty much everyone is a lower rated player, and I don't think he was talking about a 2600. I think he was talking about 2500s, because sometimes, even though, I mean, you could be Magnus Carlsen, you will still sometimes draw lower rated players. Arjun just keeps beating them. So yeah, I mean, 6 out of 6, absolutely incredible, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Who will India face? Maybe it's already known, but as I'm recording the video, I will, save that for when all of the games are finished. Like I said, keep suggesting, and I have a true brilliancy to show you for the next video. So I already have a game, but I will also show a glimpse of what you guys share. And just so I don't forget, here is the game I wanted to show you. This is the position: Young Krzysztof Duda, Poland versus Austria versus Valentin Dragnev, and look at this. This is the position. Knight to h4 was played by Dragnev, and his position is lost. Duda finds the win, or so he thinks. Queen to d8 with check. We have king to f7, and now pawn to h3. Trying to kick away the queen from the defense of the bishop here. Rook captures on f1. You cannot capture with the rook because you get checkmated. You have to capture with the king, and that is the only way for Duda to win this position. You have to capture with the king, and then after queen to d1 check, you will block with bishop to e1, and you're up material. You're winning this game easily. I mean, at the Duda's level. But Duda played king to h2. He thought, okay, whatever happens, I'm just gonna win the game easily. But he completely missed Dragnev's next move, and I'm sure you guys know which one it is, as you've already seen it. But just in case you don't, it is queen captures on h3. A queen sacrifice to open up the white king's position. Only move is g captures on h3, and now rook captures on f2 with check, and now it's a force to draw. The game continued by king g3, rook f3, king h2, rook f2 check, and they settled for a repetition here. But it doesn't matter if you go to g1 or h1. For example, if you go to g1, then rook to g2 check, and now, okay, if you go to h1, then bishop captures on h3, and this will be some sort of a draw. But if you go to f1, then you can even lose. Bishop captures on h3, goes after the king, threatens all sorts of nasty discoveries. And if you move the king, then even knight to f3, check king to d1, rook captures on d2 with check. Now you have a rook, a knight, and bishop versus a queen. The king easily hides himself, and it's gonna be a win. So of course, a repetition was the best that Duda could hope for. And yeah, that's what happened. Really crazy stuff. We can check out the queen sacrifice one more time. Look at this. I mean, you're Duda. You're just, you're enjoying your day playing king h2. You're the man. Playing, representing your country at the Olympiad, and then your opponent just plays king captures on h3. I mean, I'm not nearly as good a player, so I cannot imagine how that feels. But I imagine it feels horrible. So yeah, tough break for Duda, but great stuff for Valentin Dragnev, bringing Austria a very valuable half a point. So yeah, that's the game, or rather those were the games. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, keep suggesting so I know what to show in the next one after the one I already have prepared, because it really is a brilliancy, an attacking brilliancy. I would like to thank Professor Hexagon, William Gould, John Anderson, Anthony, and the Little Man for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.